What's going on? Alex here, and in this video I'll be going over nutritional fundamentals when it comes to taking you from low testosterone to high testosterone, and these are the exact strategies that I've used to take me from skinny to muscular. As you can see here, skinny there, muscular there. This is the strategies that I've used for my clients to take them from low testosterone. But besides body transformations, I've helped them accomplish better sleep, things like that. And if you're someone that's experiencing like depression, anxiety, racing thoughts, sleep problems, poor appetite, hair loss, low body temperature, skin problems, and all of these symptoms mentioned here, this video is perfect for you. So this lesson is actually taken from the Reclaim Mastermind that I have in my mastermind that I show to my clients when it comes to fundamentally setting them up when it comes to their nutrition. So it's designed in a way to teach you about gut health, calories, macronutrient breakdown, micronutrients, so on and so forth. So that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and yeah, good luck. Welcome to week 5 on nutrition. In this week, I'll be going over exactly what you need to do in regards to eating the right foods, removing the problematic foods, optimizing your gut health, setting up the right macronutrient ratios, the right caloric intake, how to eat, how to optimize your gut health, how to build muscle, how to eat to build muscle, how to eat to drop fat, and how to eat to improve your sleep, so on and so forth. In this lesson specifically, which is on metabolic health, I'm going to be discussing how you can track your progress and just going over fundamentals when it comes to nutrition. So that being said, let's start with, what does the Bible have to say about health? So there are 3 biblical health principles. Eat the foods God created for you. Don't alter God's design. Don't let any food or drink become your God. God's laws are intended to bless and benefit His people, spiritually, physically, and socially. Not morally bound to follow, but it is wise to ignore them. So, like you learned in week 2, you're saved by grace and faith, but God still gave us advice, things to follow to improve us spiritually, physically, and socially. So let's go over some verses. So God's original menu to Adam and Eve. So in Genesis, which is the first book of the Bible, in 1:29 said, "And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed, to you it shall be for meat." Meat meaning to eat. So at the start, God gave us seeds, fruits, and things like that. So at that time we would have been vegan, let's say. But this is why you need to understand 2 Timothy 2:15, study to show thyself approved, dividing scripture. A lot of influencers who may be Christian, but they have their own biases, they will use this verse to make you believe that you should be vegan. But what happened after the flood, let's say? So after the flood, Genesis 9:3, "Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you. Even as the green herb have I given you all things." So now we can eat anything that lives, right? Then in Exodus, I didn't mention it here, but in Exodus, which is the next book, God gave us rules not to eat things like pork, X, Y, and Z. Pork, one sec. So in Leviticus, for example, the eating of pork, for example, was forbidden to eat. So a lot of people who don't know how to divide scripture, they probably think they can't eat pork or shellfish or whatever else it was that was forbidden, right? But let's see what the other verses say. So first of all, 1 Corinthians 6:19-20. And this emphasizes why optimizing your health is super important, especially when you're safe. What? Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost, which is in you, which ye have of God, and you are not your own. For ye are bought with a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. So you need to treat yourself righteously because you have the Holy Spirit. Then 3 John 1:2. Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospered. Acts 27:34. Wherefore I pray you to take some meat, for this is for your health, for there shall not an hair fall from the head of any of you. John 6:35. And Jesus said unto them, I am the bread of life. He that cometh to me shall never hunger, and he that believeth on me shall never thirst. And that ties in there in Matthew 4:4. But he answered and said, It is written, Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. So there's spiritual food, which is Christ, which is the Word, which is the Word of God, which is by you reading scripture, that's your spiritual food. That's what emphasizes this. And then in 1 Corinthians 10:31, whether therefore ye eat or drink or whatsoever ye do, do all to the glory of God. And this is a verse in Acts 10:15. And the voice spoke unto him again the second time, what God hath cleansed, that call not thou common. Which is basically going back to how in Leviticus you weren't allowed to eat anything unclean, but now God made all animals clean. So all is good to eat, all meat. But anyway, that was just a part on what the Bible has to say on health. But let's get back to the other side. So repeat, a given structure makes possible a certain level of useful energy, and adequate energy makes possible the maintenance of structure and the advance to a higher and more efficient structure level. The best way I can describe to you health, and besides micronutrients, which is making sure your vitamins, minerals, amino acids are in place, and getting rid of heavy metals, when it comes to nutrition, you're mostly looking at protein, which comes back to amino acids as well, protein, amino acids, then carbohydrates that your body uses as fuel, and then fats, which uses to utilize vitamins as well, fat-soluble vitamins and other things. But the way I like to look at the part that you count calories is the equivalent of the way you would make money, right? So let's say your bills for your house, for your electricity, for food, the essentials are, let's say, €2,000 per month. And let's say you make €2,000 per month. You're okay, right? But you won't have enough money for luxuries. Luxuries including things like, I don't know, you want to go on a holiday, you want to go to a restaurant, go to the cinema, whatever it is. You don't have the possibility to do that. You just have the possibility to maintain. And it kind of works with nutrition. If your body's not producing enough energy, let's say it's just at maintenance, you're going to maintain what you have right now. You won't have energy to build more muscle, to have more energy, to have a higher sex drive, all those things, because they come at a price. Your body needs energy to do that, right? And the reason why you're experiencing what you're experiencing right now is because you're in an energy debt. You've probably been not producing enough energy. You've been in a micronutrient deficiency, so your body's not producing energy properly. And now maybe you're losing your hair, which is a luxury. You're not building muscle, which is a luxury. You don't have creativity, that nice colorful reality, because that takes energy. So the goal is creating a wasteful metabolic state, which means when you're eating food, your body uses it for your experience. But I'll get to more of that in a sec. Here are some fundamentals. A healthy metabolism is characteristics of a highly efficient, abundant energy flow. Healing starts when you are in a good metabolic state. Stress metabolism is a characteristic of inefficient energy production due to a lack of preferred energy source, sugar. The body stores toxins in your fat cells. So when you decide to lose weight, your body utilizes those fat cells. You then poison yourself because of the toxins that are released back into your bloodstream, making you feel sick and without motivation or energy. Plus, being in a caloric deficit lowers your testosterone. A healthy diet containing all your minerals and vitamins with tons of antioxidants is what you need to help your liver and kidneys to function optimally in order to excrete all the toxin out of the body and for your body to function optimally for energy, repair, and so forth. You burn a certain amount of energy each day just by being alive. The more calories you are able to burn, the faster your metabolic rate is and the warmer your body temperature will be. Just a short segment on anti-nutrients. For example, phytic acid is a highly potent anti-nutrient. It binds minerals in your body and leaches them out of your system. Anything that contributes to the widespread micronutrient deficiency epidemic is toxic and should be avoided like the plague. Phytic acid is a negatively charged ion at a broad pH range and therefore chelates positively charged, vitally important minerals such as iron wouldn't be there. Can we move down? Zinc, magnesium, manganese, and copper. These chelates are insoluble, making them completely unavailable to the body. Phytic acid also reduces the availability of key amino acids, namely anti-stress amino acids. In fact, many researchers considered phytic acid in the diet to be the key driver of micronutrient deficiencies, outside of actual lack of nutrient intake. Then we have artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners stimulate negative autoimmune response and negative inflammatory biomarkers. They not only feed the bad bacteria in the body and cause overgrowth of that bad bacteria, leading to excess production and absorption of endotoxin, but they stimulate an inflammatory response in the body, leading to more endotoxin. Iron is a metal, and if you have too much of this metal in your system, it's going to produce negative consequences. You already know that. Avoid anti-nutrients and endotoxins. I'm going to be getting more into all the problematic foods, the anti-nutrients, and all those things further down in the lessons. So, there's a few KPIs, key performance indicators, that I would look into, that I personally pay attention to when it comes to health, right? You have the 3 pillars of health, wealth, relationships, and within health, I like to look at body fat, temperature, and heart rate. So, the first thing is your body fat percentage. You want to be around 8 to 15 body fat. If you're above, you have more aromatase enzyme activity, which means testosterone is more likely to be converted into estrogen. If you're below 8, you're probably starving yourself, and the way you got to that low body fat percentage is due to starving yourself, under eating, anorexia, things like that. Or if you did a diet to get that low, you probably done it in a way that you're probably in the super high caloric deficit. So that's an issue. And being under 8% body fat messes with proper hormonal regulation and things like that. So the goal is 8 to 15 body fat percentage. When it comes to temperature, 36.4 to 37 degrees Celsius. The reason why I track temperature is because it's a good indicator of your metabolic rate. Like I mentioned earlier, when your body is producing energy efficiently, the byproduct is heat. You're warm. And the next thing is heart rate, 80 to 86 beats per minute. This probably is very controversial because of a lot of individuals believe that the lower the heart rate, the healthier you are, because marathon runners have a very low metabolic rate. But the reason why they have a very low heart rate, is because their body adapted in a way to preserve energy. So their metabolic rate is slow because they need to preserve all the energy that they have. So it's super low. The reason why you want an 80 to 86, it means that your body's in a wasteful metabolic state. It's not holding on to energy. It's not holding back. It's producing energy. When you eat food, you go about your day. You can even track this for yourself, that when your heart rate is 80 to 86, you feel your best. Even when you start this, when you're super hypothyroid, you may experience even a higher heart rate at the beginning, because it's one of the symptoms of the healing. Your body will increase even to 90 to 100, but you'll feel very good, and then they'll stabilize around here. But overall, if it's constantly higher than this, it means you're running on stress hormones. So you'll usually see a heart rate 100, 110, 120 when you're adrenaline, you're stressed out, things like that. Same with the temperature. But that being said, those are the 3 things that we're going to be paying attention to when it comes to measurable things. Because what gets measured gets accomplished. Last thing you want to do is go based on random things. Okay. So here's a good way to monitor your thyroid status. So I went over this a bit when it comes to thyroid hormone, that this was one of the ways to test for thyroid deficiency. But here is a way to do it. So take your temperature, which you need a thermometer, and your heart rate. You can check your heart rate by, you just test it here. You count for 30 seconds what your heart rate is and multiply by 2. You can get a device for this, Oura Ring or your phone, whatever it is. Pick one way that you check your heart rate and keep it consistent. If it's wrong, in the sense of the way that you're doing is wrong by a bit, be consistently wrong. Because the goal is not actually looking at the number, but the changes that you see week on week, from week to week, right? So that's the key thing. Same with your temperature. Don't fixate yourself too much on the actual number, but on the changes that you see. You can measure your temperature 3 to 7 times per day. When you get into a more optimal state, first you just check it, let's say in the morning, and then in midday, and then you're good. And if you want, before you go to sleep, or even just when you wake up. And you'll get to a point that you have a gauge. You don't even need to track. You'll know when your heart rate's lower, X, Y, and Z. So you do it upon waking, before and after breakfast, before and after lunch, before and after dinner. The reason why you want to check before and after you consume something is because, so this and this could be as one. So you wake up, you check, and then have breakfast, then you do it after. Because you want to check why are your measurements the way they are. So let's say you wake up and your heart rate is 90 beats per minute, right? No, let's say it's 85, it's in the perfect range. And you eat something and the heart rate goes down to like 60. That means the reason why you woke up, or the reason why you had a high heart rate, is because you're running on stress hormones. And when you ate something, you lowered the stress response, and that's why the heart rate decreased. And it's going to be the same for your temperature. So that's what you want to be paying attention to. This is one of the reasons why a lot of people gravitate to intermittent fasting. So when they wake up, because they're hypothyroid, they have issues with their thyroid levels, and they learned that whenever they eat something in the morning, they feel tired afterwards. They feel relaxed. They don't feel like conquering the world, let's say. But the reason why that is because they wake up running on stress hormones, and they eat something and the food relaxes the nervous system, and maybe they want to go back to sleep because they're just stress maxing, basically. But you'll get to a state where you'll wake up, it'll be between 80 to 86. You eat something, it'll stay around the same range. It might increase by 5 to 10 beats per minute. Even to 80 to 90 is perfectly fine. And it'll just maintain that. The optimal state is it stays like that throughout the day. The moment you wake up and just throughout the day, same with the temperature. Let's say you wake up and your heart rate's like 60 beats per minute, and you eat and it gets up to 80. That's showcasing that obviously there's something up with your liver, so it's not holding on to liver glycogen storage. So your liver needs healing. So you need you need to consume carbohydrates and foods more frequently. And that could be an indicator, a reason as well why you're waking up at night. And there has been experiments on this, how, let's say, there's individuals who woke up every 3 hours and had a nightmare. A nightmare can be driven by stress hormones, because when you're dreaming, your stress hormones are high, you're extra pessimistic, you're stressed out, and then whatever you're experiencing in your dream, it affects it, and that's why you wake up, you have a racing heart. And by having some orange juice with salt or milk with honey will completely lower the stress hormones. You'll be able to go back to sleep. Because remember, deep sleep is to protect you from darkness and cold, because those two things are stressors. Some people are so hypothyroid, the stressors too much, they have insomnia, they can't fall asleep, they're waking up at night. So within that experiment, when the individuals kept waking up every 2-3 hours, they set an alarm just before their liver glycogen stores depleted. Because your liver has a storage, right? And it releases glucose as it needs it to maintain your blood sugar. If you have high estrogen, you have a lot of toxins, endotoxin, this and the other, your liver can't hold on to enough glycogen stores to maintain you the 8, 9, 10 hours for you to sleep. When you were a kid, you can sleep for 10 hours and you'll be perfectly fine because you're super healthy. But when you're older, it's not like that. So the reason why you're waking up is, firstly, when your liver glycogen stores are depleted, glycogen is stored sugar, is depleted, your body initiates, firstly, adrenaline, which squeezes the last bit of glycogen. That lasts for a few minutes. That's why even during the day, when you feel like shaky, cold sweats, that's the adrenaline, right? And then afterwards, if you've ever fasted, you might feel groggy. Then you'll have this second gear and you can not eat for another 8 hours, because that's when the cortisol kicks in. When cortisol kicks in, that's when it starts taking your amino acids and through gluconeogenesis converted them in glucose, and that's fueling you furthermore. And now you're kind of in ketosis in the state. That's why when you wake up, you're in that state. And when you have some sugar, it relaxes the stress hormones, it replenishes the liver glycogen stores, and that's why you feel more relaxed. Maybe you want to go to sleep. So that's how it works. So basically what they done in the experiment is they got them to set an alarm just like 10-15 minutes before the stress initiated. So they would do that, then have some sugar and go back to sleep and keep doing that. And they noticed from day to day, week to week, they can go longer without refeeding, right? Because the problem becomes is it's like a scar. The scar needs to heal. And when you're going to that state of being depleted, you're re-scratching the scar, right? But when you're constantly topping yourself up, you're letting it heal, right? That's why waking up yourself just before it happens lets that healing occur. You keep refueling, you're given that fuel. But when you go into that depleted state, you're re-initiating the stressors, you're damaging your liver, X, Y, and Z. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. So to evaluate, you wake up, check your temperature, heart rate, and you do it a few times throughout the day, and you just pay attention to it. Even if you have, let's say, an hour ring, it actually tracks your heart rate constantly. So if that's something you want to do as well, something cool to utilize. But anyway, that's how it works. And I'm going to go over later how you can track everything, have the accountability sheet for me to see everything and things like that. But for now, track that yourself. So temperature and heart rate, and go from there. And the goal is, if you're doing Fahrenheit 98.6 or 37 or higher, to 80 to 86 after breakfast, all the way right before bed. And that's where you feel your best. And here's the temperature patterns. Elevated temperature, heart rate upon waking. Adrenal overactivation, so your stress hormone maxing. Fluctuating temperatures, they're all over the place. Stress overstimulation still. Low temperatures, low thyroid. So that's what I have right now. But yeah. So when it comes to calories are composed of macronutrients and micro. So micronutrients we already went over. So here's a little thing, vitamin A, different foods and things like that. I already went over that. But micro, because you need less amounts of it. Macro is because you need more amounts of it. So we have fats, which have 9 calories per 1 gram, used for oxidation, mainly to create energy, cell membranes, etc. We have carbohydrates, or for short, carbs. There's 4 calories per 1 gram. And just to mention, they're not exactly 4 calories. Different carbohydrates have different amount of calories, but the average is 4. Some have 3.9, some have 4.1, X, Y, and Z. But the average is this. Used to replenish glycogen stores and to be burned for energy. Then we have protein, aka amino acids, 4 calories per 1 gram, can be used for energy, but it's not the main function. Used to fix cellular function, used for enzymes, used for muscle building, and so on. Then we have alcohol, empty calories. There's 7 calories per 1 gram. So why is protein important? Optimal thyroid hormone production, adequate precursor for neurotransmitters, building muscle, satiety, easy source of highly bioavailable amino acids, necessary for regeneration of cells. Why is fat important? Satiety, heat production, blood sugar regulation, androgen production, antiviral properties, brain and cellular integrity. Then we have fat, cholesterol. It is important to stabilize cell membranes that will help to optimize cellular function and energy production. Cholesterol can also act as an adaptogen. Good cholesterol sources include eggs, brain, kidney, liver. Cholesterol is a precursor to pregnenolone, progesterone, DHEA, testosterone, DHT. Cholesterol is converted into the first step to pregnenolone, and pregnenolone can be converted to the rest of the steroids. Your body requires the thyroid hormone T3 and vitamin A to convert the cholesterol into pregnenolone. If you're having more cholesterol in your diet, then you can actually eat less fat to optimize testosterone. There has been this myth that dietary cholesterol is bad for your cholesterol in the body. This myth has been debunked by over a decade now, yet most nutritionists and doctors still think that dietary cholesterol is bad. If you have elevated cholesterol in your body, this is a sign of slow thyroid function, or there are too little thyroid hormones in the body. Your thyroid is not working optimally, or some of the stress hormones are blocking your thyroid from doing its actions. It has been shown that giving thyroid to a patient with high cholesterol, the cholesterol drops back to normal after a few weeks. This is because the cholesterol is then used to make steroids, so high cholesterol is the best sign to show that your thyroid hormones are slow. So fat, cholesterol, testosterone, carbohydrates. Minimum 200 grams. The brain needs at least 120 to function properly, plus your muscle. That's why being in the heart rate of 80 to 86, you feel very good, because you have more carbohydrates and oxygen pumping into your brain. So why are carbohydrates important? I think I already mentioned that. Oh no. Contain much more micronutrients compared to fats, easily fuel, better energy, create more carbon dioxide than fat, produces less reactive oxygen species than fats, contains polyphenols which lower inflammation, X, Y, and Z. The biggest concern when it comes to carbohydrate is that people think that it makes them insulin resistant, but carbohydrates are not at fault. It is the stress hormones in the body that are elevated that are producing glucose in the liver, because glucose can be produced in the body indigenously, whereas carbohydrates you eat are exogenous source. Research has shown that hypoglycemia is caused by an excess production of glucose in the liver, not from dietary carbohydrates. And once you inhibit the process that produces glucose in the liver, insulin sensitivity improves dramatically and hypoglycemia goes away. This is even without messing with dietary carbohydrates. Insulin resistance and hypoglycemia is caused by stress hormones in the body. Carbs equals better health and performance. Calories are energy needed to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water through 1 degree Celsius. That's what calories are. So why are calories important? They're important for energy production, proper sleep, thyroid function, then production of steroids building muscle, brain function, libido, stable mood, stable blood sugar, proper repair of all tissue in the body. The problem with too little calories: less thyroid hormone secretion and conversion, less uncoupling and heat production, metabolic slowdown, reduced steroid production, higher stress hormones, catecholamines, insulin resistance, slower mental function, at least 120 grams per day for brain, mood disorders. Repeat, going from hypothyroid to hyperthyroid can lead to a heart rate being 200 to 110 beats per minute. Our cells primarily fuel is glucose, oxygen, copper, selenium, and thyroid hormone. So more on metabolism. So there's different ways your body produces energy. It could be from burning carbs for fuel, fats for fuel, and produce with oxygen and without oxygen. So the glycolytic metabolism, the fast, cheap carbohydrate metabolism, which the byproduct is lactic acid, is the byproduct. The net result of glycolysis for one molecule of glucose is the production of 2 molecules of ATP. ATP is energy. 2 molecules of NADH and 2 molecules of pyruvate. Glycolysis, the conversion of glucose to lactic acid, providing some unusable energy, but many times less than oxidation provides. Lactic acid depletes energy, contributing to cell death. So that's not an optimal way to use glucose. Then we have cellular respiration. The exact number of ATP molecules produced can vary, but it is generally around 28 to 32 ATP molecules per glucose molecule. 32 versus 2, completely huge difference. So this is without oxygen, this is with oxygen and glucose. Now this is beta oxidation, which is fats. Much slower than glycolytic or respiration. It produces more ATP as there are more carbons in a fat molecule, but it skips the first step that the carbohydrates go through, so it misses out on one of the carbon dioxide molecules that would be produced. Beta oxidation is a process that occurs in the mitochondria of eukaryotic cells and is responsible for the catabolism of fatty acid. Fatty acids are broken down into acetyl-CoA units, which can then enter this citric acid cycle to generate energy in the form of ATP. When CO2 is produced in the cell, it combines with water and creates carbonic acid, and the carbonic acid will bind to calcium and sodium inside the cell and take them outside of the cell. Now you're creating a proper mineral balance. So beta oxidation can be okay, but the problem is it's not producing CO2, and you understand how important carbon dioxide is for health and keeping serotonin levels low, X, Y, and Z. So beta oxidation would be a stress state way of producing energy. Magnesium and potassium should be inside the cell, and calcium and sodium should be outside the cell. In a stress state, this flips. In reality, the opposite is true. Fat gain is a problem of lower cellular energy levels from a lower metabolism, despite adequate amount of fuel. Calories from fats, carbs, and proteins. Because there is adequate fuel but an inability to turn that fuel into energy, we can say that fat gain is ultimately a problem of turning fuel into energy. When cells produce energy from glucose, using their mitochondria, they produce a lot of energy and a lot of carbon dioxide. But when they produce energy in an efficient way due to stress factors, they produce far less energy and lactic acid instead of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is a signal to all levels of your body that cells are producing energy via the efficient respiration pathways, and that encourages other cells to do the same. This positive acceleration of metabolism is balanced by the lactic acid signal, which signals all levels of your body that cells are producing energy via the inefficient glycolytic pathways, and again, that encourages other cells to do the same thing in order to maintain coherence. A low metabolism is a symptom of too much stress. Then I wanted to cover a little bit on insulin. Insulin is very complicated, so I'm going to try my best to simplify it. Because when you consume food, insulin spike. So insulin is a very anabolic hormone, anabolic building, and the more sensitive you are to it, the better you'll be able to build muscle and lose fat. Meaning, just for this example, you want less insulin and a bigger effect rather than a lot of insulin for the same effect. So the more sensitive you are, the better it is. Insulin improves nutrient partitioning, meaning when you eat food, insulin is like it shuttles all the nutrients, like glucose nutrients. It replenishes glycogen stores in your muscle. That's what makes you look full. It takes the nutrients, puts it in the right places, so on and so forth. Insulin is a hormone secreted by the pancreas responsible for shooting glucose into the blood, to muscle fat and the liver. This glucose provides energy for these cells or is stored as glycogen and fat. Furthermore, insulin speeds up the oxidation of glucose. There is evidence that someone who eats 400 to 500 grams of carbohydrates per day burns all 400 to 500 as fuel. None is being stored, and insulin helps with that. So how it works, glucagon is in that as well. So let's say you consume something and your blood sugar is high. So the pancreas sees that the blood sugar is high. So it stimulates glucagon, which is responsible for, the red. So your blood sugar is high. So your body, because you consume something, your pancreas sends out insulin, stimulates glycogen formation. So insulin then gets that blood sugar and shuttles it into the liver. Shuttles it into the liver, muscles, or fat, which will lower blood sugar to keep you at the right rate. But when your blood sugar is low, your pancreas shoots glucagon, which takes sugar from the liver to raise blood sugar to keep that homeostasis, right? So that's how it works. Functions of insulin: inhibits lipolysis, which is the burning of fat, prevents protein breakdown, promotes glucose shooting into the muscles, converts glucose into glycogen, promotes glucose oxidation, increases glucose conversion to fats, lowers cortisol, inhibits glucose production in the liver. Insulin plays a crucial role in various bodily functions, such as preventing hyperglycemia, toxicity in neurons, promoting muscle protein synthesis, and facilitating metabolic processes, including the breakdown of fat and protein. Poor insulin sensitivity, leading to insulin resistance, can result in various symptoms, including weight gain, lethargy, fatigue, excessive hunger, difficulty concentrating, high blood pressure, low testosterone levels, memory issues, mood instability, poor sleep, and more. Causes of insulin resistance: stress, inflammation, low androgens, hypothyroidism, poor sleep, excessive inactivity, vitamin and mineral deficiency, gut imitating foods, gut irritating, toxins and pollutants in the environment, poor diet, gut dysbiosis, hypoxia, which is low oxygen, elevated catecholamine, stress hormones, elevated growth hormone. Ways to improve insulin sensitivity: lower your body fat, eat the right foods with the right macronutrient ratios, exercise, including walking, weight training, and exposure to sunlight, maintain proper sleep, stress management, and grounding practices, choose nutrient-dense foods and experiment with meal timing, supplements including magnesium, glycine, biotin, and others, test blood sugar response regularly using a glucose monitor, modify the diet by incorporating whole foods, fruits, and macronutrient-rich options, experiment with meal composition, avoid high GI refined carbs. Some things that Ray has to say: insulin release is also stimulated by amino acids such as leucine, and insulin stimulates cells to absorb amino acid and to synthesize proteins. Since insulin lowers blood sugar as it disposes of amino acids, eating a large amount of protein without carbohydrates can cause a sharp decrease in blood sugar. This leads to the release of adrenaline and cortisol, which raise the blood sugar. Adrenaline causes fatty acids to be drawn into the blood from fat stores, especially if the liver's glycogen stores are depleted, and cortisol causes tissue protein to be broken down into amino acids, some of which are used in place of carbohydrates. Unsaturated fatty acids, adrenaline, and cortisol cause insulin resistance. So things like, basically meaning, you should always, this is what I go by, when you eat protein, always have a 2-to-1 ratio of carbohydrates to protein. So if you're eating 20 grams of protein, have at least 40 grams of carbohydrates. Insulin is a hormone that is produced by beta cells in the pancreas in response to rising blood sugar levels. Insulin's primary action is to lower the amount of free fatty acids in the blood to allow glucose to enter cell and go through glycolysis to produce energy. If insulin is not working properly, then a process known as the random cycle begins to take place, in which the free fatty acids in the blood compete or fight with glucose to get into the cell to be used as energy. Whenever there is an excess of free fatty acids in the blood and insulin does not have the ability to lower them efficiently enough to allow glucose to be taken up properly by the cell to be converted into energy via glycolysis, we have what is known as insulin resistance. The ability for insulin to sufficiently lower the amount of free fatty acid in the blood to allow glucose to easily be taken up by the cell is what is known as insulin sensitivity. Basically, at the top I said insulin lowers glucose, sugar here is free fatty acids. It's the same thing, but ultimately free fatty acids compete with sugar to get into the cell. So when you consume sugar or carbohydrates, there's carbohydrates in the blood, the free fatty acids, the insulin lowers the amount of free fatty acids in the blood, so now the glucose can get into the cell to lower the blood sugar. That's how it works. But the problem becomes is when the free fatty acids are not responding to the insulin, and that's when you have insulin resistance, is when the sugar and the fats are competing to get into the cell. That's why you would have very high blood sugar. And that's why it's important to be insulin sensitive. But anyway, what is blood glucose? Glucose is a simple sugar, otherwise known as monosaccharide. It is the main form of cellular energy that is used by the body whenever the metabolism is functioning properly. Glucose is utilized by going through glycolysis and being converted into ATP, CO2 and water. All carbs turn into glucose sugar whenever they are properly digested by the body. There are 3 main types of carbohydrates: monosaccharides, disaccharides and polysaccharides. During digestion, these carbohydrates are broken down by enzyme known as amylase until they are all monosaccharides. After digestion, they are then transported from the digestive system to the liver. In the liver, the monosaccharides, glucose at this point, is either passed into the blood in order to be transported to the cell of the body to be utilized as energy or is stored as glycogen. When the glucose then leaves the liver, we have blood glucose, blood sugar. Then we have type 1 and type 2 diabetes. There are multiple forms of diabetes, type 1 and type 2, also type 3, I'll mention down in a sec. Type 1 diabetes is when the beta cells within the pancreas do not produce enough insulin or any insulin at all to lower the amount of free fatty acids in the blood, which results with an excess of free fatty acids in the blood, blocking or fighting glucose from entering the cell, causing excessively high blood glucose levels. In the case of type 2 diabetes, the body has an abundant amount of free fatty acids in the blood that are above the threshold that insulin can properly lower. This again leads to the competition of the free fatty acids with the glucose in the blood to get into the cell and be utilized for the production of energy. To put it together, the problem is the deficiency of intracellular glucose and its utilization, not extracellular excess of glucose. Then type 3 would be specifically in the brain. So your brain is not utilizing sugar properly. This is why people get Alzheimer's and all those things that messes with proper brain function. So type 1 is you're not producing insulin. Type 2 is your body is not responding to the insulin, which that could be cured. Also type 3 is specifically in the brain. That can be fixed as well. Type 1, there's a question mark. I haven't done enough research because this is a way more complex situation. But that being said, this was just an introduction and kind of a taste of what I'm going to be attacking when it comes to the section on nutrition. With each lesson, you're going to understand more and more and really understanding how nutrition works and things like that. Just to summarize the main things you need to focus on, those 3 things are going to be the main things that we're going to be focusing on and tracking. The way you can track your body fat is using the Navy SEAL method. So you go here, Navy calculator body fat calculator. Just search up body fat Navy, and whatever calculator, the Navy formula, enter your title, which metric, US, so that's kg, this is like pounds. You enter all those things, and it'll just give you an estimate. It's not going to be accurate, but like I mentioned before, if you're wrong, be consistently wrong, and what you're looking at is the differences from week to week. And then when it comes to temperature, get any thermometer you would like. The best one is just a regular thermometer you put under your armpit. You leave it there. The way you can do it is check it like 3 times if you want. If you want to be super accurate and get the average of the 3. When it comes to the beats, you can do that yourself. And the thermometer, you can go to a pharmacy or go to the Amazon. So something like this, you just put it under your armpit and it will work perfectly fine. For the body fat, you'll just need a little tape measure. So you can use things like that or just a small one like this. They're very cheap. And that being said, this was the lesson on the introduction of metabolic health and nutrition. And I'll see you in the next lesson.